Hey there everybody, welcome to this week's edition of Storytime. I have with me a red uromastyx. Fun lizard, and even more fun word to say. I absolutely love the word uromastyx, and I absolutely love the lizard, the uromastyx. These are super cool, unique lizards that can be found in India, the Middle East, and into Africa. And there's a bunch of different species of them. But if you come into the store all that often, you see a lot of times we have yellow uromastyx, which I've featured on Storytime before. And every once in a while, I get these red uromastyx in. Now, as you can see by looking at his belly, he's got some really cool fluorescent orange that goes all the way into some dark red. And I'll tell you, right now, this isn't even his best colors. Right now, he's a little dulled down because of temperature, because where uromastyx come from, they typically reach triple-digit temperatures. In fact, their favorite basking temperatures tend to be around 120 to 130 degrees. The higher the temperature and the more UVB that a uromastyx get, the brighter the colors become. They become much flashier. So when this guy's in his enclosure, he is literally safety orange across the whole bottom of his body and then fire engine red across the top of it. And he'll just sit there underneath those hot lights and that UVB for hours at a time, and it doesn't burn him at all. Now, because of where they come from, with it being very arid and very hot and everything, they don't really have a lot of food sources. So these guys are prone to finding beans and seeds and finding those and chewing on, which is also where they get their water. There's almost never water where they come from. So over 90% of their hydration actually comes from their food. When we have them in captivity, we are able to provide them with an actual water dish. We also give ours fresh veggies, so they're getting different nutrient values in there, and then also like some added water source. But where they come from, these guys live on literally next to nothing. They're pretty amazing with their adaptability, because the areas that they come from literally have almost no other life forms living in it. It's just too hot and too dry. But to a uromastyx, it's absolutely perfect. Now, despite the fact that we know deserts can be very dry and extremely hot, there are pockets of humidity here and there. So when we have caves, or if you dig down deep enough underneath the sand, you will find a little bit of humidity down there. So having a uromastyx in captivity means that it is good to have a humidity box, which is something we recommend for most of our reptiles anyways. So despite the fact he's going to have a 120-degree basking spot, you can have a cool end in the cage with this guy that's actually around 65 to 70 degrees at the very coolest, and also humid. We usually try to keep the cold end actually closer to 75, maybe even 80, but a lot of it depends on your cage size. So he's not what I would call a giant lizard by any means. He's close to probably 10 to maybe 12 inches long, and sometimes it can get a little bit bigger than that. But you should have no less than maybe a 70 to a 90-gallon cage. In fact, if you could do something like a 120 to a 180, it would be perfect for these guys. They can be very rambunctious. They do like to run around a lot, and they can be very active. A lot of people who own them tend to have enclosures are 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot, and they build all kinds of cool rocky ledges across the whole thing, and then give them excavator type substrates that they can go ahead and dig burrows into. So they'll use the burrows, they'll use the rocks, they'll even climb up on pieces of driftwood and everything in order to get up to their basking areas. Now, I think their mouths are extremely unique. It's slightly built like a bird beak, but also has kind of like almost like a ridge around the sides here. You can kind of see it's slightly sharpened there right on the edge. This is so that they're able to crush those beans and seeds that they like to eat so much. So they're not really prone to having anything that's going to grind, but more or less just break apart, and then they're going to swallow those pieces. He does have an armored tail, which a lot of the lizards in the agamid family do. This can be protection for him. If he needs to, he can whip that tail really hard and take care of any predator that's trying to come after him. But just like a lot of other animals, stuff like this is also just kind of built for show. It's not necessarily meant to hurt anything. It's more or less meant to intimidate them. Now, with all these things going on, he can be kind of a scary looking lizard. He's got the armored tail, he's got sharp claws, he's got a weird looking face. Well, I don't think weird looking, unique looking, and a hard ridged mouth, which people think makes him a very intimidating lizard, but they're actually the opposite. They're very laid back lizard, very easy to deal with. If you like bearded dragons, this would be like the next step up from having a bearded dragon. A little bit more care because we have to have higher UVB and higher heat and a little bit more space. But other than that, very laid back guy. So with that, I decided to pick a book that matched him this week called Maurice the Unbeastly. So we're going to go ahead and read this book by Amy Dixon, and we're going to read it to our little red uromastyx friend here. And hopefully I can get him just to perch most of this time while we read you your story. So, here we go. Maurice the Unbeastly by Amy Dixon. Maurice was not like other beasts. His voice was as sweet and refreshing as the dandelion lemonade on a hot day. He preferred his snacks green and organic, and he was ridiculously photogenic. Mama and Papa Beast were concerned. "Beast, roar," said Mama, "and destroy," bellowed Papa. "You must learn to be less civilized," Mama said. "We are enrolling you at the Abominable Academy for Brutish Beast." Maurice munched quietly on his kale kebab and mulled this over. He was a beast. He was supposed to be fierce and ugly and gruff. He didn't want to be a gargantuan failure. So he tidied up his room, packed up his alfalfa fritters, and headed off to Abominable Academy for Brutish Beast. "Our first lesson," growled the headmaster, will be the frightening roar." The beast responded in a chorus of terrifying shouts, except for Maurice, whose voice rose above the rest at a perfect high A. A note went home to Mama and Papa. Maurice's roar is dreadfully melodious and delightful to the ear. Lesson number 2, the headmaster snarled, is messy meat eating. The beast ripped and ravaged through the meat feast before them, except for Maurice, who placed a napkin on his lap and said, "Excuse me, please, but is there a vegetarian option?" Another note went home to Mama and Papa. Maurice is terribly neat and polite, and we had to confiscate his alfalfa fritters. "Next," said the headmaster, "we destroy." Each beast in the room crashed and crushed, wrecked and ruined, except for Maurice, who dashingly dodged and stylishly sidestepped the mayhem. "You're much too light on your feet," the headmaster scolded. Just when Maurice thought it couldn't get any worse, picture day arrived. One by one, the beasts thundered through the line, their hideous, shattering camera lenses. Maurice was determined to get this one right. He growled and scowled, he snarled and howled. The photographer still captured the perfect glamour shot. One last note went home. If Maurice insists on continuing to smile, he will never progress. Maurice was beginning to feel as if the Abominable Academy for Brutish Beasts was a gargantuan mistake. Just then, a ruckus erupted in the classroom. An unidentified creature had infiltrated the academy. One beast roared, but the creature just roared right back. Another beast bravely tried to catch it, but she stomped much too slowly. All the beasts quivered and quaked, except for Maurice, who sashayed to the left and flashed his winning smile. "Here, creature, creature," he sang. The creature stopped and looked with big eyes at Maurice. Maurice pulled a hidden alfalfa fritter from his pocket and held it out. The other beasts watched in amazement as the creature bounded over to Maurice and curled up in his lap. "Teach us this creature magic," the headmaster said. And so Maurice was named the official creature whisperer of the Abominable Academy for Brutish Beast. He was a gargantuan success. His paper, Coaxing Creatures 101, using the beast's softer side, won first prize in the school essay contest. He'd led a campaign to add kale to the lunch menu, and he started the Academy's first a cappella group, the Barbaratones. Maurice was definitely not like the other beast. And thank goodness for that. This is an excellent book on how just being yourself is the best thing that you can do. Doesn't matter if people make fun of you. Doesn't matter if they call you names or call you weird or don't like the way you talk or the things that you're into. You're best just being you. You're always going to be your best just being you. And Maurice knew that right off the bat, and he stayed true to himself. And by the end, other people realized how good that was. So, hope you really enjoyed Maurice the Unbeastly. And I hope you enjoyed learning about the red uromastyx, who isn't nearly as beastly as he looks and is actually an amazingly gentle little creature.